India Radio. In the year-end program 2017 series, now we bring you a discussion on Digital India movement. The participants are Pavan Duggal, cyber expert, Ravi Prasad, IT expert, and Prasoon Srivastava, journalist who initiates and moderates the discussion.
As we are about to complete third year at the end of 2017, and a lot of things have been done under this government, especially the Digital India program. The Digital India program started earlier, it was called e-governance, but a lot of changes have been brought into this program. Mr. Ravi, can you throw the light, where are we right now in terms when we talk about Digital India?
Well, the Digital India program is a very good initiative of the government. It is an excellent initiative. First of all, we have to look at the various schemes that have been achieved. One was the BharatNet project. Then there is the online digital payments emphasis, especially after demonetization. There have been apps launched such as the BHIM app. There has been the initiative to connect all the Gram Panchayat with broadband connectivity and have the last mile connectivity via Wi-Fi hotspots. Then we have had the Aadhaar Act also being notified. So these are all very welcome steps. In fact, also there is now a CEO of the Digital India program in the Ministry of Information Technology. So certainly I think Modi government is in mission mode to achieve the goals of the Digital India program. And these will have a very great benefit to the Indian economy, especially as a multiplier effect and as a cost and time saver. And a study by ICREER had shown that the broadband penetration increases by 10%, then the GDP increases by about 3.2%. And this is mainly in terms of telecom being a cost and time saver, especially in rural areas. For instance, if the villagers want to know what the price is to sell their agricultural produce. 20 years ago, they would actually have to make a visit to a mandi to sell their goods. Now they can actually carry out entire transactions online, receive the payment. They don't have to leave their village. Results in great savings on fuel and transportation costs. So there's overall very great multiplier effect to the economy of Digital India succeeding.
Mr. Pavan, if we talk about Digital India, how would you summarize how is the fabric around Digital India being built in the country?
The government of India has taken a very holistic approach in trying to look at the entire act of achieving the goal. The goal is to transform India into a knowledge society and economy. And keeping that thing in mind, it's not gone unilaterally in one direction. The fabric of the governmental approach has been multidimensional. It is focused on a multi-stakeholder model. And finally, it's aimed primarily not just for the urban and the metropolitan cities, but primarily also for the rural areas. The kind of focus that's happened in the Digital India program is beginning to show some very concrete results. For example, the number of internet users have massively increased thanks to the digital infrastructure that's now being made available in the country thanks to the efforts of the government of India. Well, last year there used to be about 20 crore odd mobile internet users. This year we had touched the figure of 35 crore mobile internet users, and it's expected that this is going to keep on growing. This growth is primarily happening because the infrastructure has been readily made available in the country thanks to the initiatives to permeate internet connectivity to the rural sectors. The BharatNet is a classical example of trying to provide internet connectivity to rural panchayats, gram panchayats, and right now it's 1 lakh gram panchayats that are being targeted. Over a period of time, all the 2.5 lakh gram panchayats will be potentially covered. On top of it, thanks to the Digital India program, the appetite of Indians for digital data has now constantly been increasing. Last year, for example, in 2016, it was estimated that on an average, an internet user was only using 500 MB of data per month. Now, this year, the figures have gone to about 4.5 GB of data consumption on an average per person per month. It's expected that we should hit 11 GB data per month by the year 2021. So all this is thankfully happening because of the remarkable vision of this government, because we have been independent for the last so many decades. But never ever have we seen such a vast transformational program which is aiming to irreversibly transform India into a huge IT superpower and into a position of strength where the Indian nation and the Indian economy can command not just respect but appropriate market share at the global level.
That you're talking about that data surge will be there, people are using data, but how much of it is coming from the rural area where connectivity is being focused? As of now, the figure that I have latest is that around 108,000 panchayats are ready for broadband services, and government is talking about 100 megabit per second speed. That is the bandwidth that they plan to provide. They've also allocated 4,066 crore for rolling out Wi-Fi services so people can access net on their mobile phone because computers may be expensive. So talking about the common man and people in rural area, Mr. Ravi, what do you think, how they are contributing to this growth? Where are they in the overall picture?
India is essentially a wireless smartphone country. Abroad in the OECD countries, most people access the internet over fixed fiber optic networks. In India, most people don't have computers or laptops, but they connect to the internet via smartphones. And the number of smartphone usage in the country is greatly growing. Now, certainly the Digital India program, 1 lakh gram panchayats have been provided broadband connectivity to a node. And from there, the BharatNet project, the first phase which was completed in 2017, and the second phase has been announced. And some private operators are also being given a subsidy to provide the Wi-Fi hotspots at each village so that the villagers can have very high-speed broadband connectivity over their smartphones. Now, you also have to look at the content end of it because a lot of the content has to be in the local languages and appropriate for the villagers' use. A lot of the governance projects, land records, tax records, health insurance, crop insurance, weather information, soil conditions, then health information, remote health diagnosis, e-education. They all can be provided over the smartphones to users, and these have to be in the local language content. Local language applications have to be developed. The programs have to be written. You have to have a lot of video content because India is largely a video-oriented country rather than a text country because literacy is still poor.
Mr. Duggal, there is one concern. If you see, now people are coming onto data platform. They're using mobile apps and other things, but they're not aware of the consequences these applications can have, and once the experience is bad, the result can be disastrous for connectivity per se. How do you see government is gearing up to resolve these experience issues over internet?
The government is constantly committed towards increasing and enhancing the user experience while using internet connectivity services. So that's why on the one hand, we are beginning to see the TRAI, or the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, repeatedly coming down with specific new parameters and stipulations stipulating a minimum quality of service for telecom services and internet services. On the other hand, we also begin to see that the government has sought to address this through another approach. The government has already appointed Justice Sri Krishna Committee, who's now looking at coming up with recommendations of what kind of legislation on data protection the government can actually go ahead and pass so as to meet the hopes and aspirations of Indians. So it's not just at the technical stipulation of minimum quality standard services that the government is concerned with. The government is also keenly monitoring the way the quality of services is now being provided by various service providers, whether both in the urban and also in the rural sector. And finally, through the policy formulation approach, the government also wants to give a confidence to its users that you please come on, join the digital bandwagon, and we will as a country make sure that your data is adequately protected from unauthorized access or usage.
Mr. Ravi, I'll go down deep into rural area. Suppose that I am a rural guy and I'm looking at something is being installed in my village. I don't have any idea of it, how it can benefit me. Now, Digital India has 9 pillars from creating literacy and everything. But how that person should be connected to Digital India? Physical availability is there, but attraction to bring him on that platform. What is happening on that side?
Well, there is a digital literacy program which the government had initiated this year, the Digital Sakshar program it is called, where they will train a number of people who will go to the villages, and those people will further train the villagers, the end users, of the benefits of being in the digital program. The most important issue is cybersecurity and financial security, to see that when you're carrying out online financial transactions, you're not subject to fraud. Otherwise, a lot of hackers can easily get into your bank accounts and clean out your bank accounts very easily if you do online banking. So that is the number one thrust area. The priority should be on cybersecurity, teaching the users digital hygiene, safe digital practices. Don't share your passwords, change your passwords regularly, be very careful when you do online transactions. So those kinds of cybersecurity measures should be taught to very basic users, because security has to come in from the very basics. You can't first install a system and then add on security later. The security consciousness has got to be in from the very beginning. And people have got to be very aware of how they can be financially defrauded by scamsters or by people who take them for a ride. They get these SMSs and unsolicited calls saying you won a lottery and send some money to Windle to get your payment. So they had to be taught not to fall for scamsters. They've got to be taught how to protect their data, not to give access of their data to unauthorized users. So all this has to be taught to them right at the very beginning.
Tricksters have a lot many tricks, and they are very good at convincing people, especially those in rural area. When they come across the number, I've got your number, I've got this details, they may have taken it from some insurance agent or some other sources. Mr. Duggal, when these kind of cases take place, how good is digital to tackle these cases?
Well, I think as a nation, this is one area where we are lacking behind, because we are not alone. Almost every nation in the world is roughly on the same curve of maturity and challenge as far as trying to capture, identify, prosecute and convict cyber criminals. India has had a relatively very poor cybercrime conviction rate, and that's primarily got to do with the inadequacies of the law. The Indian Information Technology Act 2000 has made invariably almost all, barring a few, cybercrimes as bailable offences. Now, the moment a guy comes out on bail, the first thing he does is goes and destroys the relevant incriminating electronic evidence, thereby vanishing or evaporating whatever chances that will exist of potential cybercrime convictions. In addition, I think the 2008 amendments to the Information Technology Act 2000 landed up doing more harm than good. Primarily because while they actually enhanced the scope of coverage of cybercrimes, but by making majority of cybercrimes as bailable offences, a wrong message was given to cybercriminals that India is soft on cybercrime. And consequently, that's begun to start having its impact. Now, ever since demonetization took place, India has seen a massive curve of not just adoption of the digital medium, but has also seen a massive surge in cybercrimes in the country. The kind of cybercrimes that have happened in the last 365 days in India, we haven't seen that kind of growth in cybercrime in the last 20 years. So this clearly goes to show that Indians are also a very trusting lot. They are not really consciously careful of their own data, nor do they want to inculcate cybersecurity as a part of their day-to-day lives. No wonder the government can only help you to get sensitized. The government can run awareness programs, it is running, but at the end of the day, the users themselves have to be consciously clear that they must be duly diligent when they have to deal with their own data online, and they should not really trust anyone, because once you'll end up losing money, then it's a very, very tall order and a huge challenge before you can even think of getting that money back. So a lot of work needs to be done. Fortunately, the government has announced that it will be amending the Information Technology Act 2000, and this, I think, should be a golden opportunity for the government to not just address the various loopholes that exist under the Indian cyber law, but also to provide now adequate teeth to the Indian prosecution and law enforcement agencies as they go ahead fighting cybercrime per se.
Where do you see the equilibrium is when you see the benefits of Digital India? Government is surely gaining out of it. There have been around 57,000 crore of saving through direct benefit transfer platform by linking Aadhaar to various services. But if you are to talk about benefits to people, how would you compare with the benefits that they are getting?
First of all, e-governance and mobile governance becomes greatly enhanced, and the government services go to the people. Earlier, people had to go to the government office and spend days to get their documents, to get their land records, to get birth and death certificates, to get educational certificates, all their other paperwork done. Now the government is coming to the people, so all the government services will be available to you on your smartphone, wherever you are. The villager doesn't have to go out of his village. So it's a great saving of time and energy for him. But it also leads to a lot of data leakage, problems of identity theft, of financial frauds, especially rural banks have a huge job of educating their populace, their depositors, about how to keep their bank accounts safe, to keep their financial information safe. It's going to be very difficult to keep your tax records safe, your land record safe. All those cybersecurity practices have got to be enhanced. Then we have to guard against unauthorized access, that people who are not authorized to have that information do not gain access to that information. So certainly a huge job on the part of the government to educate barely literate people or illiterate people about the benefits that they can get, but also how to safeguard themselves against being defrauded.
So government has already trained over 82 lakh people under National Digital Literacy Mission and Disha program which they are running. They have also launched a new program for training under Prime Minister's scheme. So that is surely they are doing on their part. Now, security is one of the main concerns that you are identifying in connecting people with digital. The other thing is now government is also talking about $1 trillion digital economy in next 5 to 7 years. So how can Digital India play an important role in getting India to that level, and how can it benefit people?
About the creation of a $1 trillion economy, that is a very ambitious plan. You may not achieve it in the time period that's required, but it certainly is achievable. And if we look at the digital economy, first of all, we have to look at hardware, software, content applications. One of the major problems in the digital economy is that all our electronics are highly import content. We are importing roughly about 75 to 80% of our electronic hardware requirements, mainly from China. In fact, electronic imports are second only to oil and natural gas imports for us. So certainly local manufacturing in India of electronic hardware, of computers or smartphones has got to be greatly enhanced. And there is a program that the Prime Minister has started that to make India neutral in exports. That is, by 2020, the exports and imports should balance each other. So a great fillip has to be given to local manufacturing of hardware, of smartphones, of computer servers, advanced computing systems. That certainly needs to be done.
As of now, government says that 242 investment proposals under modified special incentive programs have been received. There is a proposal of around 91,000 crore investment from these companies, and 21,000 crore for investment have been approved. They are also saying that around 5 lakh jobs will be created in the mobile sector alone by 2019, and in coming budgets also they propose to give some benefits to boost this thing. That is one side of it. The other side, if we come to the services side, we have seen the application economy booming. So there has been a Startup India mission and everything. Mr. Pavan Duggal, can you throw a light on what kind of new stream of entrepreneurs we need to see to boost this digital economy target?
I think as a nation, India requires to see large number of startups in the context of cybersecurity. This is one area that we are finding ourselves relatively on pretty weak wicket. As Ravi talked about, a majority of the imports of electronics comes from outside countries. So as a nation, we don't even know the kind of hardware that we are using, what all backdoors exist, what all of information is being collected and is being sent outside the territorial boundaries of India. It's very clear that this information could potentially be used against the sovereignty, security and integrity of our own country. So in this context, if we were to have a splurge of startups who are only looking at various aspects of the cyber security ecosystem, that I think would be a good starting point for the purposes of strengthening the government's of India vision on converting India into a digital economy. In addition, I believe that the new startups should also now need to concentrate on the Internet of Things, which is becoming very huge. We are expecting to have 50 billion devices getting connected to the Internet by 2020. And that being so, a large number of these devices will happen in our own country. Already, without us realizing, IoT has already come inside India and as part of our day-to-day lives. We are all using smart TVs, smart refrigerators, smart ovens. And we want startups in this particular sector so that the adoption and usage of Internet of Things by the general population needs to be encouraged on the one hand, but they also need to be sensitized that there are adequate mechanisms available to protect the security of their devices as also the privacy of their own respective data. In addition, I believe artificial intelligence is coming in with a very big bang onto the center stage. I believe if Indian startups could concentrate on artificial intelligence and come up with customized services and offerings, that will immensely help in transforming this particular program onto the next level of growth.
So we have to transform basically from service user community to a product development hub of the world, and especially in the field of cybersecurity. As you mentioned, cybersecurity products need to be developed and government is also focusing on manufacturing. We are getting investment from foreign investors in the space of mobile manufacturing. If we see, we lack in IPRs, intellectual property rights. Even if we have some company manufacturing mobile phones, most of the IPRs are owned by foreign brands. Mr. Duggal, how can we overcome these issues when we can have our own IPR? How is the progress on the ground?
Well, the ground progress is not that happening as we are expecting. The reason is we need to have more enabling legal frameworks. we right now do have intellectual property rights legislations, whether it's the Copyright Act, whether it's the Trademarks Act, the Patents Act, or Geographical Indications legislation. But the fact is, the way technology is moving at such a rapid pace, our intellectual property rights legal regime is not able to cope up with that particular pace of growth. Now, consequently, just to give an example, India still does not allow you to patent any specific software per se. You will have to now join or conjoin it with an hardware before this can be allowed to be patented. Similarly, business process outsourcing methodologies and processes also need to be made available on patenting regimes on a much more equally efficacious basis. So I think the existing legal frameworks are very complex. They tend to scare the various stakeholders, including the startups, who do not find themselves very comfortable with this very complex jaunt of legal propositions. I think it will do India far more better if we can actually simplify the intellectual property rights legal regimes so that the man on the road, the startup that's happening in a garage or in a one room, can equally access the benefits of intellectual property in the Indian ecosystem, rather than thinking of going outside and getting a US registration for a trademark or a patent.
I've interacted with some of the startups. What they say is that there's issue in getting funds from India. So when they go abroad, they get clear message from investor and they are quick in investing. They identify the technology and they have that kind of entrepreneurial zeal to invest in startups. Mr. Ravi, can you share your views on this IPR issues that we have?
Well, on IPR issues, if you look at it, right, most of the patents that are registered in India are with the multinationals. Even though a lot of the development work is done in India, in the subsidiaries of the multinationals, and the patent rights go to the multinational parent company. So certainly we need to integrate our university infrastructure with the government labs, the DRDO labs, and private sector industry, and especially startups in a very big way, so that research and development that's being done in the country is immediately patentable. Because what is happening is that a lot of research that's being done in India is not immediately patentable. It is not in a product form where you look at its state of the prior art and clearly say that how your product is innovative and cannot be understood from the state of the art, from previous art, which is the basis of a patent. So those kinds of practical research orientation of technology development has got to be done in the universities and especially among the engineering community of students, which is so far is not present. They have to learn how to get a startup funded, how to get your ideas fundable, how to apply for a patent, how to research prior art, which itself requires a huge infrastructure in terms of people who understand both the technology and the law.
Government has come up with its own electronic development fund. It is acting like mother of all the funds and they are supporting few funds to invest in startups and development of technology. We are also seeing that many startups, when they develop any product or IPR, they get acquired by a foreign company. Recently, we have had these issues in US where they have raised this concern seriously that their semiconductors, the electronic chip, are being acquired by Chinese companies, so they have raised this alarm that there are security issues. Where are we when it comes to this kind of concentration on security? Mr. Duggal, can you share your views on this?
I think as a nation, we need to do far more on cybersecurity than we are currently doing. In fact, our approach has been at best very ad hocist and very temporary. We are more of a reactionary kind of a nation. We react to incidents rather than proactively planning for the same. An example in this regard can also be the fact that India still doesn't have a dedicated cybersecurity law. This at a time when countries like China, countries like Germany have had dedicated laws on cybersecurity should be a wake-up call for all stakeholders, particularly the government, that we need to have a detailed legal framework. In terms of legal frameworks, the only thing that we currently have is the National Cybersecurity Policy of 2013, which has been a great document. But the problem is, the document has only remained a document, it's not yet been implemented. So consequently, with more than 10,000 attacks taking place on Indian networks on a daily basis, I think it's time that the government needs to make cybersecurity a number one priority in case if it wants the Digital India program to not just reach its culmination stage, but also to further contribute to Indian growth. Because from the state and non-state actors' point of view who are located outside India, they're all concerned that they're all waiting for one opportunity where they can destabilize the cybersecurity of the Digital India program and then try to impact the growth of the nation as a whole. So I think a lot of work needs to be done. And similarly, the government alone cannot be made responsible for everything on cybersecurity, as the Digital India program is making us digitally more and more aware and, shall I say, strengthened. It's our responsibility as digital users to inculcate cybersecurity as a part of our day-to-day lives. We should not ask the government what you have done for us. We should ask ourselves, what are we contributing towards strengthening the cybersecurity of not just our devices, our networks, our data, but also of the Indian nation as a whole. So cumulatively, all stakeholders, I believe, have to be sensitized that we must inculcate cybersecurity as a way of life. The government is definitely taking the lead, but the government has got its limitations. A lot of users need to be sensitized that adoption of day-to-day cybersecurity methodologies can help them not just escape from becoming victims of cybercrime, but they can also help in protection and preservation of critical information infrastructure of the country. So a lot of things have yet to be done. A lot of things are being done, but because the pace of technology is so fast and because cyber criminals and cyber terrorists are moving at such alarming pace, I think we need to constantly keep on encouraging us to adopt more faster methodologies and ways to meet up with the challenges of cyberspace.
So especially when there are around 248 crore transactions that are done digitally in India per month. So you need to secure that space. There have been also an issue of coordination between center and the state. If you see a lot of policies and a lot of infrastructure work is being done by the central government, the BharatNet project connecting all 2.5 lakh gram panchayats and all the investment also coming under MSIS program for manufacturing of mobile phones, other electronic products where job creation is happening. States have also come forward. When it comes to government services, around 3,500 services are today available from the government side that people can avail across various states. How's the coordination on e-governance side between center and state and the gap between digital? When I ask you first question, how can we connect rural people with the digital, make them secure? Like suppose the police case is there, the law enforcement agency plays an important role. The coordination between center and state in terms of government services.
Certainly that needs to be improved. There is a big gap between the central government and the state governments in their commitment to digital technologies. Some state governments are very forward-looking, other state governments lag behind a lot, and it's a very uneven implementation. Certainly the first point of contact for a citizen is his local government, his taluk government, district officers, and the state governments. So the state governments have to take much more of a lead in providing e-governance services and mobile governance services because A, they're the first point of contact, and B, it is their responsibility to develop the local language content. So certainly the states have to play a far greater role in trying to implement even the central government schemes in their various states because they will have to translate it into the local language and into a format that's understandable by the residents of that state. Then again, I just want to take up on your earlier point about the semiconductors. Now, India has negligible semiconductor manufacturing facilities of its own. We don't manufacture any electronic circuits with it. And if we are going to call ourselves a global superpower, especially a military superpower, then we have to develop a strong manufacturing base, especially in defense electronics, avionics, because we can't go to war based on imported components, imported semiconductors, imported integrated circuits, imported subsystems. As it is, India is one of the largest defense importers, and a large amount of the defense import are electronics. So certainly you need to greatly enhance local manufacturing of integrated circuits. We should design and fabricate integrated circuits within the country, especially for the defense sector, avionics sector, aviation sector, and other large infrastructure sectors such as telecommunications, shipping, ports, electricity.
So manufacturing is one of the key for the economic growth as well as for the security aspect. We were talking about services. As per data, there are 2.69 lakh common service centers which are delivering services to people in rural area, out of which around 1.7 lakh are at gram panchayat level. So if we are able to deliver services more and more digitally, I think people will be attracted towards digital India. We see about job creation. There's a BPO scheme where government has done well to set up BPOs in small towns. Digital India has got a beautiful palace built on. Everything is digitally available. I remember a time when you had to stand in queue to get ticket for 7 hours. Now you get in a minute. So ease of availability is there. It has expedited the pace of services. People are benefiting on it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we've not only seen how Digital India program has immensely contributed this year, but we are very hopeful that the year 2018 will be a much brilliant year as far as digitizing India is concerned.
Thank you. Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Digital India Movement. The participants were Pavan Duggal, Cyber Expert, Ravi Prasad, IT Expert, and Prasoon Srivastava, Journalist, who moderated the discussion. The program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website newsonair.nic.in. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalk@gmail.com.